Okay, we are here back in ZBrush and we have all of our different body subtools as separate primitives, and I've sorted them into one big folder that I named body. And in this folder I have basically everything from fingers to feet to ears and nose and eyelids. However, what I keep separate here is the hair and the eyeballs. We don't want to merge the eyeballs, so keep these two separate. And I've also created one mouth bag mesh, and you will see the reason for it now. When we sculpt the lips together, we merge them, they create a combined mesh line in the center, and this one will always look a bit messy. So what we want to do is create some geometry that is kind of simulating the inner part of the mouth. This does not need to be perfect. We won't open the mouth of the character, so this is just to make the transition between the two lips a bit prettier. And you can see a small video of how I created this mouth bag mesh right now. So like I said, this mouth bag mesh we will keep separate for now too. And what we do now is merge all the different parts. And the method we learned for it is to click the mesh that is on top, and we navigate down here to merge, and then we hit merge down and hit OK. However, this takes a lot of time. So what we will do instead is we will go to the gear icon, and if we put everything that we need into one folder, we can go to merge folder. And by clicking this button, you see that it merged all of our subtools that were in the folder into one mesh, saves us tons of time, and it keeps the folder with the different subtools as a backup version. So if we realize we need to make some changes to the state where it were all separate subtools, we can simply go back here, delete this one, and then create a new one. So this is really a flexible workflow. Okay, so let's look at our polygroups, and I fear that we need to do some cleanup here, yes. So Control Shift click, and then everything that should be one polygroup, we will, oh, there's one missing too. There we go. And everything that needs to be one polygroup, we will Control W and flood everything with one polygroup. Let's see, these should be separate subtools too. And yes, this one is one example where we have many subtools, but they are not splitted into different polygroups. And this is because I probably duplicated them with the Gizmo tool and not in the subtool palette. So we can use the autogroups feature here, because they are still separate pieces of geometry and not merged yet, and I want these to be different polygroups, so this is why I use the autogroups, so they have different polygroups. Okay, let's bring everything back. Let's look at the remaining parts. Looking good. Looking good. All right. Next step is merging these together, the geometry pieces together. And the very first method we learned was Dynamesh, but as you can see here with the fingers, for example, if we have geometry that's close together, this won't work and will be really messy, and we would need to go really high to actually preserve these very thin shapes. But luckily there is an easier way, and we learned this one already too, which is going to the gizmo, to the gear icon, and then select Remesh by Union. it will calculate, and there we go. We only create new geometry along the transitions of the polygroups, and our fingers will look very clean, nice, and tidy. This looks good. This is just a preview, and we can see that with the orange gear icon. And if we are happy with the result, we need to hit accept. And for me, I think everything's looking good. So let's go to the gear icon and hit accept. There we have it. One beautiful base mesh. So the next step that we want to do is to add our mouth back to the character. And this mesh is right now created in a way that it sits inside the body, but it extrudes outside enough so that it pokes through the lips entirely. And if we want to use this mesh as a subtracting tool, we need to set these small icons here to the second ones. And you will see the reason for that in a second. These small icons are called Boolean operations, and we can visualize what they do by hitting the Live Boolean button up here in the top. You can see by enabling Live Boolean, we can see these in action. If we go to the first icon, this is additive Boolean operation, means if we merge these together, they will be added, just like you can see both of them, and they will be merged just as always. If we go to the second icon, this one will be subtracted from everything that is above. And the last one is kind of intersecting, so we only keep the part where they are overlapping. But in this case, we need the second one, and then we need to have these two visible, but everything else I will keep hidden because we only want to make the Boolean operation for these two meshes. And we can come down here and make Boolean mesh. We let it calculate, and you see nothing has changed. We still have the two separate subtools. We can hide these, and then if we look in the append section, we can now find a U mesh, which is our newly added mesh. If we select this one, it will be added to our subtool, and you can see this newly added mesh has the operation that we wanted applied, and it will create a new polygroup for the mesh in this area. Right, and this completes our setup for the base mesh. Next step will be to create polyloops and create a nice low poly mesh with the zero mesh tools. We want to use polygroups to create exact edge loops around the eyes and the mouth, and use these to guide zero mesh a bit better in our zero meshing process. So let's isolate the head by Control-Shift clicking on the head. We can hit Auto Groups to make these separate subtools, so Control-Shift again on the head, and then I will use the masking pen to draw lines around the eyes. This with symmetry on. To tell Zero Measure that if there's a new polygroup, we want to have a new edge loop right there. This should be good. Control and W. And then one more. We will draw one all the way here. Of the nose. This should be one polygroup. Control W. And then we want one around the eyes, around the mouth too. There we go. Control W. And this should be enough for now. Let's test the zero measure. For this, we will navigate to the settings here under Geometry, Zero Mesh, Then definitely keep the groups on, because this will tell ZBrush to take our polygroups into account. Then we have this smooth group slider, which is also useful. It will basically get rid of all these jagged edges and make these smoother, so we keep this one on too. Then there's one important slider called adaptive size. This one is telling ZBrush if there's complex shapes like the nose and the mouth and the eyes, it allows it to create more topology in these areas, for example, in comparison to the back of the head, which is pretty, doesn't have as much dense curvature information. And here we have a ton of complex shapes. So we make adaptive size really strong, and then we hit zero mesh. Don't forget to have symmetry on, because otherwise our final mesh won't be symmetrical. Here we go. Result is pretty low poly. We will start one more time to maybe, let's try 11,000 roughly. And then what we can do beforehand too is use the polish by features. This will roughly make these smoother in the beginning too. And we can merge these into a polygroup as well. Zero measure. And this is looking pretty good. Let's see. Body is looking great. Good edge loops around here. This looks good too. Overall, pretty good results. This is definitely a base mesh that we can start working on. Just want to double check one more time around the eyes. This might be a bit complicated. Nose is a bit jagged too. Alright, so these are like teeny tiny operations that we still want to get rid of. So let's see how we can fix these best. So fixing these transitions right here are a bit like, it is a bit tedious, especially around the eyes. I want to have a loop cut that goes all the way around. So what I will do is I will fix them in the folder, which means I will need to get rid of everything that I did afterwards, which is unfortunate, but this is just the easiest way to go about it. So we will hide this one and then delete this one. And in the body mesh, we now fix what I said here before, while they still are separate primitives. What we can also do here is move this one. Let's see. Make this one polygroup already. And this one we can kind of just move in the back. This just makes it easier because we repeatedly fix these steps. Alright, and then for the eyes, this time I make sure that I have this poly loop that goes all the way around here. And then be very intentional about this back part too. Like this. Okay, so with the nose, try it like this. Okay, so one more time. We navigate to this one and merge folder, hide this one. Here we have these two and go to make Boolean mesh. Then we append this, still the old one, so make Boolean mesh. All right, and this is now a final low poly base mesh. It has some wonkiness here and there, but instead of doing, it's still way faster than doing manual retopology. And this is the result that we can now use to subdivide. Control D, and then you can see we get these subdivision levels, and we will return to this lower poly stage to make any big changes, and then we can go to the higher poly stages to sculpt in some details. Here, I want to teach you one more trick, which is keep creases. So before we subdivide, let's go back. We can create sharp edges around these polygroups. There is one trick. This is, like I said, called creases and can be found here in this under geometry creases. And there's one button called crease polygroups. If you click this, you see that we get a small dotted line around these different polygroups. And if we subdivide now, let's see the result. You see that I keep very sharp edges around these creases. And every time that I smooth them out, let's go a bit less high, I can come back to polish by features and make the effect very strong, and it will return back to these creases. So wherever you have polygroups and you want to maintain these, you can use this keep crease function to highlight or keep them sharp. This could be interesting around the eyelids, for example, or around the nose in some areas. Of course, not everywhere, but yeah. If you want to get rid of the creases in some parts, let's say we only want to keep the creases on the head but not on the body, we mask off the top part and then we hit uncrease, unmask. So everything that's unmasked will be uncreased, everything on the face is still creased. And then if we subdivide, you see that these parts stay uncreased and the ones in the face stay creased. This is just as a small trick. If we want to smooth the transitions out between these meshes, doing that in a high subdivision level is really difficult. So it's best to do that in the lower stages. Here it goes way better. We can smooth these out to create nice transitions. And the cleaner you worked beforehand, the better, like the easier you have, the easier you will find this smoothing process right now. On this side, I like to have the creases here. Then regarding the mouth, we want to close this gap again. And for this, we can use the move topological, because that one will only move the polygroups that are the polygons that are in the same polygroup. And here we turn off perspective and create a new polygroup for the top half, Control W, so that one is separate. And maybe we need to work a bit more accurate, so take the lasso tool, make this one polygroup, and now if we use the move topological, we are moving only one polygroup, and the lips need to be separate polygroups too. So auto group, they are still connected. So let's mask them off. One polygroup here, topological. And we can also keep these masked like this, and this maybe too. Only move this one. And one important part is that these don't get too flat, so we take our two polygroups and then make sure that we inflate them a tiny bit to add back the volume. Okay. See, without wireframe, and this part needs volume too, so go here, purple part. All right. And then we would need to refine the mouth and put it back to the places where it needs to be, of course. Okay, and in this session we will talk about how to extract clothing on top of our base body.